Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the SDHQ Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Kupetsky, and you are seeing this right. I am here all by myself. Unfortunately, we didn't have a guest that was able to attend for this week's episode, so I'm going to be doing it solo. I am a little bit nervous since I feel like I am a little bit better when I have someone to bounce ideas and, things off of, but you know what? We're going to roll with it. We're going to have a good time. We're going to start off with this episode like we usually do with the game news updates, and then we're going to go right into our topics, which we have a slew of big ones to talk about today. So let's get started on what games have been updated with, the Steam Deck in mind. The first one I wanted to start with was Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. It got some missing Steam Deck configuration options, which were not there to begin with, which that was a little bit weird. They were missing... they were missing inverted flying, keeper invert, and vibration. But on top of that, there have been some font size and deck button improvements, which is always nice, and a battery saver option in their graphical options. So they do have some presets there, and one of them is now Steam Deck Battery Saver. I have not tested this out yet to see if it's actually battery saver. I do have worries whenever I see developers doing these presets. It's a nice idea, but I always feel like there's something else that's being left out, or maybe they are going a little bit too far under when they don't need to. It could also be the case of something that they know that I don't know when I'm testing. Like maybe there is something that if you do in one specific scenario, it will drop unless you have the settings set to something specific. But if it doesn't happen throughout the majority of gameplay, I don't think it needs to be changed. So I'm always wary of that kind of stuff, but I do love seeing that there are presets, and some of them work really well. I think Cyberpunk has a Steam Deck preset, and it works decently well. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it works, and I can't fault developers for doing that. There wasn't really much else with the Harry Potter game, but for the most part, it was just some Steam Deck fixes, which is, still very nice. Subsistence finally got controller support. This is a open world sandbox game that has been in early access since 2016. I remember seeing it pop up constantly because I'm a sucker for early access games. So I remember seeing this continually pop up, and now after almost 8 years, it finally has controller support, and the developer specifically mentions that there is Steam Deck controller support. He made the controller support using Steam Input, so it has full Steam Input compatibility, which is really nice, especially if you're on the Steam Deck. And he does have support for like Xbox and PlayStation controllers as well, but again, we're Steam Deck HQ. We're talking about the Steam Deck here. So I would say that's really, really, really exciting. He did give us an overview of what buttons do what, and it's pretty standard. I would say it's pretty standard compared to other games, other similar open world survival games. But on top of that, there have been a lot of new animations that have been added. You can customize your aiming down sight sensitivity. There's a way to quickly select your tool belt, and there's a quick craft hotkey. So it's a solid update, and I would say that it does warrant another. I guess if you haven't played it yet, or you did and you've kind of gone out of it because again it's been in early access for 8 years. I think it's worth another try, especially if you're going to be playing on the go. It is a playable game, though you will need to change the options a little bit to get to a playable state. Earlier on in this week, I would say it was around last week, Celico had an update for their game, and they finally got rid of the option that would cause Steam Deck crashes, which is setting the windowed mode to outside of full screen. But I'm glad that it's just been completely removed, because it caused an issue where your screen would go entirely black, and you could not change it. You could not fix it unless you went into desktop mode and manually changed the settings to, back to what they were. So that's just been removed completely. And usually I'm not a fan of developers removing settings or hiding settings. uh, when you're playing on a Steam Deck where you have to put in a specific launch command, like Steam Deck equals 0 parentheses command parentheses. I'm not a big fan of that, but I am glad that they took it out this time because it did cause issues. The rest of the update is really incredible as well. There's a huge list of changes, reworks, improvements. There's new checkpoints, grenade throwing's been reworked, backpack reloading is implemented. There's smart ammo pickups are there so that if you have, let's say, a clip of 15 and you see ammo and it has 30 on the ground, you will only pick up 15 instead of picking up all 30, and then 15 is just wasted. So it is nice. Stagger and dodging has been reworked a little bit too. It's just overall a major fantastic update from the team. And if you haven't played Celico yet, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite first person shooters on the Steam Deck, and I think it is well worth playing on the go. The team did an incredible job reworking the GZ Doom engine into what it is right now. And honestly, I'm shocked that they were able to do it. Like the way they were able to add in all the features they added in, that they added in achievements, it's phenomenal. And it shows. The game is wonderful. So I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't yet, especially if you're a fan of first-person shooters. There's a game called AutoForge, which is kind of like Terraria mixed with Factorio. It's really interesting. It's a 2D game about automation, and I'm a sucker for automation. So this kind of spoke to me a lot. But in their update, in the 0.3 update for the game, they have fixed some major performance issues that were happening on the Steam Deck. So now it should be significantly more playable on the go, and honestly, it's great. And they also implemented cloud saves. So if you're playing on multiple different devices, like if you're playing on a desktop PC, Steam Deck, or if you're like me who just got an ROG Ally X, which I'll say a little bit about that later because we're Steam Deck, but very happy with it. If you have an ROG Ally X and a Steam Deck, it's going to be great. But on top of that, there's some other upgrades and updates that have been included as well, like an upgrade to the mainframe to enable fast travel, so that there's new fast travel. The tech tree has been expanded. There's some new automated defensive structures, like elemental turrets, sky sappers. The invasion system has been overhauled. They really this was a decent size update. So very, very glad to see. Really just the game looks really cool, and I'm glad I've discovered it from the Steam Deck updates because I'm sure as hell going to play it. This one is less of an update and more just like, oh, look, finally, the Elder Scrolls Online is now rated playable on for the Steam Deck, which it was already a playable game. Like you could play it, but it wasn't the easiest experience, mostly because of the launcher. The launcher always had these issues, but with the release of Proton 9, those issues have kind of dissipated. So Valve finally got around to it and gave it a playable rating. Now, it does still, it isn't perfect still. It does have the playable rating, which means there are some improvements that could be made. And I know the Elder Scrolls Online team mentioned that they are working on getting it into verified. But it's not there yet. Currently, I'm waiting for it to load because I didn't memorize it or have it up on time. Currently, it does still say you need to use the touchscreen or virtual keyboard for the launcher. You have to bring up the virtual keyboard manually, and you have to enable controller support using the in-game settings. But that's all stuff that the developers can fix. So it's nice that they at least have said it's going to be verified. We're working on it. Bear with us. And that's essentially what they said. So that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Of all the MMO-like games that I've played, the Elder Scrolls Online is probably one of my favorites, only because it isn't a subscription-based service. I'm not a fan of subscriptions in general, and it's one of the two reasons why I have stayed away from Final Fantasy XIV, other than, I will get addicted to it because it's Final Fantasy XIV. It's hard not to. and I'll lose track of time and I won't be able to do all the work that I need to do. So that is a big reason why I've stayed away. And, to save money, I don't want to pay for a subscription every month. And then if let's say I don't play it, then I don't feel like I'm getting the most out of it. With Elder Scrolls Online, it is just one fee, like one pay fee up front. And then they do have expansions, and the expansions are cool. But that's a big reason why I like Elder Scrolls Online. It is fun. I had fun playing with friends on it. Would I go and play it out myself right now? Probably not. Less because I wouldn't enjoy it, but more just because there are other games that I want to play first. But if I had to go back to an MMO, I would choose something like Elder Scrolls Online, or Elder Scrolls Online, because I do like that I don't have to keep paying for it. I guess Fallout 76 would fall into that same category too, though. So maybe Fallout 76. And then Goat Simulator 3 got a new update. And it's not super crazy, but it did have some Steam Deck fixes. They did fix the button prompts showing up instead of like the keyboard buttons. Split screen will only happen if it detects another controller. So before this, it might have gone into split screen without there being another controller attached. So now that's been fixed. The text in some areas were the incorrect size, so now they have been corrected. And if you touch the screen during gameplay, your goat would kind of freak out. Like the camera would spin and your goat would just headbutt intensely. That has all been fixed. So the game is much more playable. When I was reading the update, I thought I was going to say in the article, and like this, that this would get it to become verified, but the game is actually already verified. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it was verified, because one of the requirements is the correct button prompt. So maybe this wasn't happening to everybody and was happening to some people, or it was an oversight, which does happen. But the update has a ton of bug fixes. And one of them that's in there, I would go over all of them, but one of them that's in there is just called Watashi wa Star, which could be I would say could be, but it's almost definitely, referencing the song. But I have no idea what it's referencing it to in the game. Could just be a random line of text, but that stuck out to me a lot. And that's all for the game updates. There have been some others that I may have missed, but those are the ones that stuck out to me. I will cover those other ones, and you'll probably see them in the next episode. But for now, those are the ones that happened. Over the last week. That's really significant. Now we get into our main topics, and there is a good chunk of main topic to start with. Or to really go through. But I'll start with the meatiest one, which is talking about Reddit. So, if you've been following our social media, probably on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, we have discovered that that at the main Steam Deck subreddit, we have been blacklisted. So, if you try to put in our link into, like, if you create a post and you put into a link, it will say that our domain, or Steam Deck HQ, is not approved to be posted. Now, this was not discovered by us directly. This was actually discovered by someone outside of our team, and they told us because I'm good friends with them. And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" So I went and I tried it myself, and same thing, said it was not approved. And I thought that was insane. I mean, we're a press outlet that specializes in the Steam Deck. Why are we blacklisted from a Steam Deck subreddit? Right? Kind of crazy. So I messaged the mods. I, put in mod mail, and I just asked, "Hey, I noticed that our site is under the not approved list for, links, making any posts. What's going on?" And I didn't hear back, and I updated my team because I thought it was crazy. And one of our writers, his name is Oliver, he decided to post on the Steam Deck subreddit when when a few hours had passed and we hadn't heard anything back. And we knew that the mods were active because posts were being taken down and they were responding. So if you know the Steam Deck subreddit, you're going to know exactly what happens, because you know what happens when anyone tries to criticize the mod team of the Steam Deck subreddit. And I'll go into that in a second. But basically, Oliver asked publicly why we were blacklisted, why our website was. We said why our website was banned. Technically, you could circumvent and put our link in the body, like you do a text, and you could put our link in the body, but the post would be taken down. So essentially, it was being banned, and any mention of it was gone. So he made a post. We asked why. About an hour in, we had about 150 upvotes and counting, with tons of comments, basically rallying around us saying, why would they be banned? What did they do? That's ridiculous. This is a site dedicated to the Steam Deck, and as of we know, we're the only website that is recognized by the industry as an official press outlet that specializes in the Steam Deck. There are a lot of content creators, and there are some other amazing websites that do cover the Steam Deck. I mean, Gaming on Linux is a great one, but we are industry recognized. We go to events. We've been accredited as press at events like Gamescom. We've gone to Summer Game Fest. We're going to Tokyo Game Show. So it's kind of crazy to think about that we have been banned from the Steam Deck subreddit. And about an hour and a half after the post was up, it was taken down. The post was removed. Comments were locked. Now, throughout that entire time, Oliver and I had been responding to people because we were, the people were asking us, what happened? Why were we banned? And in those comments, we did talk about like that we were, trying to communicate with the mod team and ask them what's going on. So after that, we got back onto our subreddit and we started kind of moving things around because we were like, look, this is ridiculous. We may as well just go back and keep doing our own thing. And we go back and we restart the subreddit. About, I want to say, a couple hours after Oliver's post, other community members, without us asking them to, we have never asked, and we would never ask others to post on the Steam Deck subreddit on our behalf asking why, because it does risk a ban and we don't want anyone to put their accounts at risk. So don't do it. If you're watching this and you want to, we are asking you not to do it. If you still decide to do it, it's up to you, but we are asking you not to do it. But we started seeing like community posts pop up, and there was one in particular that popped up and stayed up for around the same time. It was like an hour and a half, that not only brought up asking why, but also linked to our subreddit. And we were, going on with them and, talking to them and commenting. And that same person, or it might have been a different person, but at the same time, someone else posted on the Linux gaming subreddit. And that post got a lot of traction. So because of those two posts going at the same time, we were responding to comments on each one. Our subreddit grew from 5,000 to around 8,500 members in a very short time. And since then, it's been about 2 days, I want to say. We are at over 13,100 members, which is insane. It's insane. And thank you, everyone, for your support, and for anyone who's joined the subreddit. Thank you. But for the post that's on the Steam Deck subreddit, it was taken down about an hour and a half later, as usual. And not only was Oliver banned, but I was also banned from the Steam Deck subreddit. And we never got an answer back. And I messaged the mods about 3 or 4 times over the course of 3 days, and was muted and then banned. I never heard back. And I not only was my account banned because of a comment that I made where I said that, nothing personal against any of the mods, but I mentioned that they muted me and I would try messaging them again and asking why in 3 days. And that post not only got me banned, but it was it also someone flagged my account for harassment from that comment. And if you're looking at the video, you'll see the comment posted here. Probably would have been a good idea if I actually had the comment up and was reading it. So let me get the comment up so you can see, because when I did this, when I saw the flag come in, it linked to the exact comment that I was referencing, and I got to see it. And it's the same one that got me banned from the Steam Deck subreddit. So whoever did it not only got me banned, but it also so whoever did it got me banned, but it also, got me flagged via Reddit, which is disappointing because on top of that, Reddit gets the flag, but they also have to approve of that flag. And it was just a warning. So, you know, no harm, no foul in the end. But I was still a little bit disappointed that they would just do that, So I'm going to find the comment because I know the exact comment that got me flagged. But either way, so that happened, and I was a little bit worried. But either way, I'm not going to be commenting or trying to contact the mod team at all. No more. So there is no. So there's no way that we are going to end up escalating this. The only thing that I would like is the only thing that I would like is for all of this to be resolved, for us to go on about our merry way. Our Reddit, I don't want our subreddit to become a place where we just start bashing on everybody. I don't want it to become that. I think we are bigger than that. And I think it's going to show, as we keep going on. After that, people started, continually posting on the Steam Deck subreddit and risking their accounts, which again, we do not encourage anybody to do. Please don't do it. If you're considering it, please don't do it. So the comment that specifically got me banned was me saying this: creator of Steam Deck HQ here. Thank you guys for all your support. It seriously means a lot. We still have no idea why our website is banned from being linked, but the support and kind words mean a lot to myself and the entire team. We keep trying to get an answer and continue to update as it progresses. I can't contact the people running the sub for 3 days due to being muted, so I will continue then. That's the entire quote. That's it right there. And the reason I know that the Reddit flag, like the Reddit website flag, was specifically that quote is because it has the same post, same number, same shares, same everything that the quote is, that the quote exists from. So, and there's no other quote that really was flagged, and this one was the one that got me banned. So unless it was a completely different quote, which I don't think it is, would be it. And as far as I know, I didn't mention anyone by name. I just said the mods. I would never mention someone by name, though. If you know the sub, you probably know exactly who was the one behind it. I'm not going to say because, again, I don't want to invite harassment to this individual, but we know who this person is. Either way, after that, other people started posting on there. They risked their accounts. They got banned. And it was really intriguing seeing that subreddit's player count or user count or member count go down. I don't remember a time seeing it go down, but this time it did. And if I remember correctly, or if I think it might still be going down. I know ours is still going up, but I'm not exactly sure if theirs is still going down. It doesn't matter though. The point is, it was crazy that any of this happened, and I still can't believe it to some degree. I mean, we're a press website, and as far as I know, we have not irked them in any way. Like, I don't recall ever being aggressive or, pushy. There may have been a time where I did a little bit too much self promotion, but like a mute or a ban, a temporary ban from me, like my account, I would understand that completely. But yeah, if you want to support us, come join the subreddit. Post about your, any news that you find about the Steam Deck. Our subreddit is going to be focused more on news, quality, knowledge posts, guides, mods, anything that has to do with quality information about the Steam Deck. We want it there. The regular Steam Deck subreddit has turned into something similar to Instagram, and I'm not saying that it's only pictures, but it seems to highlight pictures above everything else. And the whoever does the pins will usually pin posts that really have little to no relation to the Steam Deck, and I've been known to break their own rules. So we on the Steam Deck HQ subreddit want to be the community that the Steam Deck subreddit should be. And we're going to push ourselves really hard to be a community first before anything else, which means we're not going to spam links to our website. We are not going to override your posts with our own if we report on the same thing. For example, if there is a SteamOS update and someone posts it first before we have the chance to write it, we're still going to write the article, but we will not post it on the subreddit because someone else already posted it there, and that would be a duplicate. So community first. Anyone can post their own website. We invite creators there. We have a whole verified creator list of people that are calling the Steam Deck HQ subreddit their home, and includes awesome creators like Fan the Deck, Retro Game Core, Gaming on Linux, High Tech Low Life. It's a great place for everybody, and we want it to be a community first before us. We're still going to be posting our links from time to time, so you are going to see it. And if we do cover games ahead of time, we're one of the only outlets that really looks on the Steam Deck. We will post about that on the subreddit as well. But like I said, we're not going to be spamming and only posting our stuff ahead of everything else. We want this place to be for the community before anything else. We're also going to be very open to criticism. So on the Steam Deck subreddit, you could get banned for using the word mod or mods or moderation to try to circumvent their ban on those words. We are not going to shy away from criticism. We have a whole post flare that just says critique, and that's supposed to be a critique against us, a critique against the sub, or a suggestion for something you would like to see or something that could be better. In the end, we're trying to make a community for everybody, and we need the input of everybody if we're going to succeed at that. So, in short, there was a whole fiasco on the Steam Deck subreddit. Our website was blacklisted. We asked why. We were banned. And now we're trying to build up our own. And it went from, in the span of less than a week, it went from 5,000 members to 13,100 and counting, which is insane. So thank you guys so much for supporting us and being there and wanting the same vision that we have for a Steam Deck subreddit. If you want the full story, then in written form, I will link to our Reddit post where I did go over the timeline of what happened, at least from our side. We would love to hear the other side. We would love to hear the moderator side over at the Steam Deck subreddit. I don't know if we ever will, because instead of answering us or giving indication that they wanted to answer us, they muted us and banned us. And they do the same for anybody who does anything similar, or even just someone who comments asking like what's going on. That person will get banned. So I hope something comes out where we can have like an actual discussion about what's going on and why, but I have my doubts. So that's basically it about Reddit. Let's go into actual Steam Deck news. I want to start off with Space Marine 2. And Space Marine 2 just came out for early access people who paid for early access or bought like the more expensive editions on September 5th, so a couple days ago. And we got it earlier than that, and we had the chance to review it. Unfortunately, while the game is amazing, it's a really great game and it invoked those co-op games that I used to love back in the day. So it's super exciting to see it come back like this. It is not great on the Steam Deck. No matter what settings I tried, and I tried different Proton layers, Proton GE, which I believe I tried Proton GE 9-12, Proton Experimental, both on the regular and Bleeding Edge beta, and Proton 9, and nothing worked. I also tried to see if maybe the 4 GB UMA buffer or cryo utilities would do anything to help, and while cryo utilities swap file may help with RAM usage, since the game does use a lot of RAM in certain parts, it still wasn't enough to make the game playable. Now, Focus did go on in a blog post and say that they are going to be supporting it, and they are working on Steam Deck support, and they're hoping to get it out by the end of the year. So I'm not surprised that it's not perfect yet, but it is a great game. Absolutely. If you have a more powerful computer, or if you have something like, where is it? There you are. If you have something like the ROG Ally, I do recommend getting it. It's 100% worth it. Speaking of which, I do want to say one thing about the ROG Ally. I know we're Steam Deck HQ, but I want to say good job, Asus, on one thing in particular. These handles are so much nicer to hold. I hated holding the ROG Ally handles. It was the worst. This is significantly better. The only problem I do have are these back buttons. They are so tiny. I can barely reach them with my fingers. And maybe that was by design, but it's just not comfortable to use the back buttons for me. It's way more comfortable to hold a device, and it plays Space Marines 2 really well. But otherwise, I wish the back buttons were a little bit easier to press. Still, though, good job, Asus. I do want to say that they made some really great improvements with the ROG Ally X. I still like my Steam Deck more. Nothing will beat the OLED screen. Linux is 100 times better than Windows on a handheld like this. So I'm sticking with the Steam Deck for general usage. But if there's a game that just cannot be played on the Steam Deck, especially one that we're reviewing, like Star Wars Outlaws, we're doing our review on the ROG Ally. It's better. It is a better experience overall. But yeah, Space Marine 2 is a great game. Highly recommend getting it. If the Steam Deck is your only way to play it, I would not play it there. You are going to find regular drops going down to the mid 20s, and sometimes when you're aiming down your sights with your gun, it could go down to 14 or 15 frames per second. The only way I saw it improve to any degree is by reducing the resolution and using FSR Ultra Performance, but the game looked extremely blurry. It seems that the game could be both CPU and GPU bound, but mostly CPU right now. So a lot of the optimizations that Focus could be working on is CPU wise. I would also like to see reduced RAM usage, because I did suffer one RAM usage crash, which means I used up too much RAM and my device ran out and it crashed. So I would like to see reduced RAM usage and better CPU optimization. But overall, the game is fantastic, just not Steam Deck ready. But it is really cool seeing how well the game is. How and if it does get those improvements, it's going to be a fantastic experience and 200% worth it to play it on the go. And I do recommend it, even if you're considering buying it early. I do trust Focus Entertainment. I do think that they will be able to do it. I know that they care a lot. So I think it's if you're buying it and you want to play it on the Steam Deck, you are going to be very happy with it as later on in the year. Games that there are a couple of upcoming games, unfortunately, that do not have Steam Deck support though. But there might be some good news on the horizon. There were two games that either recently came out or are more recently coming out, and that is Towerborne and Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Both of those games, unfortunately, do not have working Steam Deck support right now. Test Drive Unlimited, it does seem to be anti-cheat related, whereas Towerborne, it was an update that uh, broke it. For Test Drive Unlimited, the devs did say that they are working on it. They want it to be working, but they cannot promise when or if it'll ever be done. So it's one of those where they're saying they want it, they are working on it, but they don't know if they can do it. And I believe it's because they are working with the anti-cheat developer and they're trying to get the anti-cheat that they're using running on Linux. One of the big reasons why anti-cheat is there is Test Drive Unlimited is a fully online game. It's closer to like an MMO. So it's kind of it's difficult for those kinds of games on the Steam Deck, but the game itself has a very high spec. Like it requests you to have a lot of power to be able to play the game, which might not even be able to run on the Steam Deck in general. So, for instance, the GPU requirement, the minimum GPU requirement, is a GTX 16, an NVIDIA GTX 1660 with 6 gigabytes of video RAM or VRAM. There is the AMD equivalent, which is the Radeon RX 480, and the Intel equivalent, which is the Intel Arc A380, both of which asking for 8 gigabytes and 6 gigabytes of video RAM, and it's difficult. It's very difficult when you have those kinds of high requirements. And while the CPU requirement is on the lower end and I believe could be handled by the Steam Deck, it does have a 12 gigabyte of memory or RAM requirement, and that's going to be very hard to use on the Steam Deck since it'll very likely run out of RAM, since combined with the video RAM, it's asking for over 18 gigabytes of RAM to be in there. Usually video cards have their own set of RAM, especially video cards nowadays, but on devices like the Steam Deck and ROG Ally, they only have one RAM and they're sharing it between video RAM and regular RAM. So on the Steam Deck, we have 16 gigabytes total. So they'd have to split that with video RAM and regular RAM. All of this, the minimum specs is for low 1080p quality at 30 frames per second using FSR2 at ultra performance. That's extremely, extremely blurry. And it might not be too bad if you're at 1080p, but on a Steam Deck, that's not great. So I don't know if Test Drive Unlimited, if it is working, will be able to run on the Steam Deck, but they are trying to work on compatibility, and there is something to be said about that. Towerborne, on the instance, should be able to run on the Steam Deck, but due to an update, it's not able to launch. Luckily, this is something that they are prioritizing, and they want it running on the Steam Deck. So they are working on a regression to fix this. And I'm very happy because this action RPG, it's like a 2.5D beat 'em up from the people who made the Banner Saga, is fantastic. I remember playing it at Gamescom last year and I loved it. We do have it right now to review, and Xbox did send us a key, so thank you guys for sending us a key. We'll have our thoughts out, soon. But it's hard. It's at least this is going to be a game that we will be able to get running on the Steam Deck. Based on the minimum spec requirements, though, it should definitely be able to run. It is asking for a GTX 970, an NVIDIA GTX 970, or an AMD Radeon RX 590. It wants 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the only thing it says about the processor is a quad-core 3.2 gigahertz. And this is all at 1080p with native resolution, low to medium graphics settings, 30 to 60 frames per second. So playing it on the Steam Deck at 800p, we should be able to really push it, at least in the minimum area. If we can get in more into the medium settings, that would be great. But it should be playable on the Steam Deck, and we're just waiting on we're just waiting on Stoic. The developer's name is Stoic to fix the regression. It's not going to be there when it launches into early access, but it is something that they are going to be working on. They said it'll be ready in the near future. So looking forward to that near future. I'm really looking forward to it. One other game I did want to talk about, though, is Castlevania Dominus Collection. This is a collection of Castlevania games that all released on the DS years and years ago, and they've been re-released by Konami on Steam. And they did a fantastic job bringing over what used to be touch-only controls into gamepad-friendly controls. I'm really happy with what they did for that. And it's amazing to play on the Steam Deck. It fits perfectly. The only problem is that it does drain a lot of battery. And I've noticed this for some games that are on the smaller side or seem like they shouldn't be this heavy. They do drain a lot of battery. And there's another one that's coming out soon that is doing something very similar. It doesn't seem like it drains a lot of battery, or it doesn't seem like it should drain a lot of battery, but it does end up draining a lot of battery. So with Castlevania Dominus Collection, I wanted to kind of go over it because these kinds of changes might be helpful for games that are draining a lot of battery when they're very pixelated or they're old, and they shouldn't. So with Castlevania Dominus Collection specifically, you can set the TDP limit to 4 watts and the GPU clock speed frequency to 800 megahertz. By doing that, it curbs battery drain. It'll keep a stable 60 frames per second, and you don't have to change any sort of quality settings whatsoever in the game. Basically, it brings down the drain so much that if you're playing on an OLED Steam Deck, you could get up to 3 hours of extra battery life with a more stable frame rate and less battery drain without any changes to your quality settings. It really is just this is the way to play it. Like, if you're playing on the go, like, having the game drain at like 11 watts is insane. This is a game that was released on the DS over 15 years ago. And there's no reason for it to drain anything over the minimum amount on the Steam Deck. And there you go. That's how you do it. So if there are any games that you know of that you are playing and you notice a high battery drain and you're like, I wonder why it's so high, try something like this. Sometimes the TDP limit might need to be a little bit higher. Some games might need it at 5. Some might even be able to go down to 3. But the big thing is capping the GPU clock speed frequency. By having a solid frequency, it should sometimes stabilize the frame rate. And there you go. So if you have the Castlevania Dominus Collection and you have been seeing a high battery drain, if you notice it between 10 watts to 12 watts, try changing the TDP limit to 4 watts and the GPU clock speed frequency to 800. You're going to see a great difference without any issues. I would also set the SteamOS frame rate limiter to 60, to 60 frames per second and 60 hertz. On the LCD, you'll have this anyways. On the OLED, you might have to switch it. It's worth it. It's worth it, and it's a better way to play it on the go. And since the Steam Deck is a portable device, I don't see why anyone would challenge that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend doing that. Now I want to talk about retro games, which is kind of perfect since we just talked about Castlevania, which is from the DS. So if you're a fan of emulation, then you probably know of two different ways to emulate games and get them on your Steam Deck easily. I'm going to talk about the one that isn't talked about as much, and I really wish it was talked about more: RetroDECK. This is an all-in-one package that you can find on the Discover Store that you can download, and it has all of the emulators that you use right in there. Now, it doesn't update as quickly as the other one, which is EmuDeck, but that's because the developers of RetroDECK are testing the emulators and making sure the newest versions don't have any bugs and that everything works well together. And the RetroDECK team shared with me some of their new updates that are coming out soon, and that's what I wanted to go over. So there are two big things that they are working on for their next update that they shared with me. One of them is a complete rewrite of the manifest. Now, this is going to be extremely helpful in the long run because they're optimizing everything from behind the scenes, which will make it much easier to update the game more with the new features that they are planning that they haven't gone over with me yet. The entire Flatpak manifest being rewritten means that they'll be able to make new optimizations, reduce space, and create better synergy between emulators and engine dependencies with much less overhead. This is something that the team wanted to get done, before the bigger, newer features were added. And yeah, they know what they're doing. The team so far has been able to reduce the entire package by around 70 to 75%, which freed about 400 megabytes to 600 megabytes. That's nuts. Now, they did tell me that the new features that they are going to be adding in, and the new systems that they're going to be adding are going to make up for this loss. So you're not going to see a reduction in size. When you download it, it's still going to take up around the same amount. But because of the new system, because of the space that was reduced, you're not going to see more space being taken up, but you're going to see more systems being added, which is fantastic. It's all done to create a better foundation for what they're going to be working on in the long run. Now, the other one that they added in is the Godot configurator. Ugh. The Godot configurator. Sorry, that was not great. The configurator is basically what they're going to be using to change settings throughout the entire application and do so in a nifty way. So some of the details that they showed me were they have a BIOS checker and a font selector. So using the BIOS checker, you'll be able to check the BIOS for the systems that require a BIOS, make sure they're good and legitimate. And you're going to be able to select different fonts. The team did put in one font specifically so far called the Open Dyslexic font, which should make it more readable for people who have dyslexia. It's nice. It's nice to add that, and I think it's a great little accessibility tool, or really just something small, but for people who have dyslexia, they'll be able to read everything with ease. The BIOS checker, on the other hand, does exist right now, but this one's going to have a better presentation with more BIOS that it's going to be able to check. You are going to be able to view logs for different programs that they use it with, that they integrate into RetroDECK within there, and have some quick little links to respective websites. So far, from what I was able to see, they have logs there for RetroDECK, for Emulation Station or ESDE, and RetroArch. I like that all the logs, these windows do appear in the configurator. It doesn't take you to another page. I hope that's something that they continue doing, and I'd love to see them implement something like that for all the emulators as well. I don't think that's going to be easy. It may not be possible, but it's something I would like to see. They are going to have a different way to select different emulators on top of that, and have submenus with different configurations. Really, this is pretty standard, but one of the things I wanted to highlight, or that they highlighted to me, is the design overall. They have a very unique aesthetic with a pixel design, and I think it's gorgeous. They definitely went out their way for it. But I like that they also have submenus where you're going to be able to change settings that can ripple across that emulator. As they showed me right now, it's only RetroArch that has something like that. Hopefully we will see that for other emulators as well, but it would be really cool to have a very nifty configuration that you're going to be able to change all the emulators and different settings in the emulators without having to go into all of them. The last thing that they showed me was actually a way for you to change your borders, or for you to enable or disable borders for specific emulators. So again, using the pixel art design, you can change, emulator borders for like the Game Boy Color, the Advance, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, the Game Gear, Mega Drive, Master System, and you're going to be able to do that from the configurator instead of having to try to figure it out in the emulator, which is wonderful. And I hope that they continue to do things like that um, for other emulators. And I don't know, I would love to see more of what the configurator is going to be able to do, because they didn't show me everything. This is just some of the features. So I'm very excited to see what the team's going to come up with. A lot of people are asking and do ask, what's the difference between EmuDeck versus RetroDeck? And that's something I'd actually like to go into more detail later on. But essentially, they both do very similar things. They both bring emulators onto your device and give you a place where you can easily access them, and it installs all of them, makes it super easy. The biggest difference is that EmuDeck will take the most updated versions of each emulator and put them onto your system with essentially a wrapper that or a launcher that allows you to access each one, but it's a little bit more disjointed. RetroDeck kind of puts everything into one package, and while the emulators are not super updated, it is much easier to access and kind of roam through it. It's also much easier to download, whereas EmuDeck is more like a script where you have to download from GitHub. RetroDeck you can download from the Discover store. So it really is just a matter of which one you do first. We'll go into EmuDeck versus RetroDeck at a later time and much more in depth than this. I also want to talk to the RetroDeck team and the EmuDeck team for something like this to kind of see like what is the big difference, like why choose one over the other and which is better for Steam Deck users. So expect something like that from us very soon. But moving on, I want to talk about the final Windows driver that has been released for the Steam Deck OLED. So, not too long ago, we got a new I'm going to start over. Not too long ago, we got Windows drivers for the Steam Deck OLED, which blindsided us completely. It was a huge surprise. I remember seeing the announcement coming out, and my wife and I were heading to where were we going? We were heading to the airport, and I remember writing it as we were walking to the airport, and it was just like, I was just rushing to do it, and we got into our plane. We were there early, but I basically made us stop so I could write the article for it on my phone, and I did, and it was posted and did very well. But Valve decided to just shadow drop it, out of nowhere. So recently, or in this case specifically 3 days ago, we got the final driver for the Steam Deck OLED. So when it was initially released, we had every single driver except for one, which was an audio driver to allow the speakers of the Steam Deck OLED to be used with Windows. So if you were using it before, you had to use Bluetooth or you had to plug in headphones directly. Now, with this driver, you should be able to use the speakers on the Steam Deck OLED when you have the Windows operating system on your device. Now, it is still not perfect. There are still some hitches, and I don't think you will get better performance with it, and you might get slightly worse performance trying to play games through Windows using the OLED, but it's still really cool that it's possible to have Windows on your Steam Deck OLED now. If you are going to install it, I recommend putting it on your main hard drive or your main SSD. Don't use a micro SD card. It is not recommended to put Windows on the micro SD card, even if you're just trying to dual boot. There are ways to unofficially dual boot as well, but Valve is working on an official way to do it, as well as more desktop SteamOS releases. So I would either go with one of those unofficial dual boot methods that install Windows onto your hard drive or onto your SSD, or just wait it out. I don't think it's going to take super long. They're definitely gearing up for some bigger release, and I think it's going to happen sooner than we think. So definitely, but just don't install to your micro SD. It's not going to be worth it. But it's really cool that Valve finally dropped the last driver for it, and I'm very excited to see what people think of having Windows on the Steam Deck OLED specifically. I'm a sucker for OLED screens, so this would definitely be the kind of screen I would want to use for Windows. And then the last part, since we did just talk about the Windows drivers and operating systems, recently there was a SteamOS beta that was released, 3.6.12, and that was released 2 days ago. And it wasn't really super big. It did have a couple of good bugs that were fixed. There was improved frame pacing with variable refresh rate on external displays, some regressions that were fixed with displays. There's a couple of rare issues that could cause corruption on older Steam Decks, specifically the 64 gigabyte Steam Deck, and that was all fixed, and it was super nice. But what really stuck out to me was a tweet from Pierre Liu, who works at Valve and works directly on the Steam Deck, who announced the SteamOS 3.6.12 beta. He announced that it was now out, but after that, he mentions that this is our first release candidate to land 3.6 into stable, so feel free to give it a shot in beta over the weekend. What this means is that with the release of 3.6.12, Valve is starting to push SteamOS 3.6 into the stable branch. So we could be seeing SteamOS 3.6 in stable very soon. Now, the operating system, or the new version of the operating system, comes with a ton of improvements. They have a whole range of updates to like the Arch Linux base, the kernel. They have an update to the Mesa driver, which is the graphics driver, which could increase performance in some games. There is improved display uniformity, so colors should be spread out really nicely, or mirror compensation. KDE Plasma, or the desktop experience, is going to be updated. The Steam UI is going to have better responsiveness. There's support for HDMI CEC features like TV remote input, waking up the TV, input switching. The dock firmware has been updated, so it fixes compatibility issues with high refresh rate, variable refresh rate displays, or VRR. Overclocking controls are being added to the Steam Deck LCD. There's a whole bunch of improvements that come with SteamOS 3.6, and the fact that it's going to be hopefully coming to the stable branch soon is fantastic. I can't say that enough. But essentially, this is now going to be in testing, and I think we'll probably see SteamOS 3.6 make it into the stable branch by the end of the month. It's still very early in the month, and they're just putting it into the release candidate, so I don't think it's going to be much longer until we see it into all of our hands. For really, I don't have any more, I guess I don't have a bigger time. I don't have a time frame of when I think it's going to be. I just know it's going to be relatively soon, especially if they're putting it into a release candidate. So hopefully we'll see a dual release, because Proton 9.0-3 is in testing right now. So maybe we'll be seeing Proton come out first, because that was being tested first, and then we're going to see SteamOS joining in the fun. Or they could both be coming out at the same time, kind of have a big dual release. So that'll be really cool. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Those were the biggest stories that we have for this week. There's a lot of exciting Steam Deck news here, though. It's really cool to see more games getting Steam Deck support, as we covered at Gamescom. Towerborne and Test Drive Unlimited, I do hope that those get fixed really quickly, and Test Drive, I hope it just gets fixed at all. I don't know if it'll run, but it would still be really nice. RetroDECK's update is looking very promising, and SteamOS coming to SteamOS 3.6 coming to the stable is going to be really awesome. As for the Reddit, which we went over earlier, thank you guys again for all of your support. If you want to join our subreddit, you can check the link in the description below, or go ahead to Reddit. If you're listening to this on like Spotify or Apple Music, go ahead and check it out. If you go to Reddit, just type in Steam Deck HQ or r/Steam Deck HQ. You're going to find us there. We have 13,100 members and it's growing, and the community has been incredible so far. I mean, there have been a couple posts that amazed me because Reddit has such a bad rap for being a very hostile place. And there are posts that I've been seeing where people are so much more supportive than I would expect. And it's awesome. I'm so proud of the community for being so incredible. And hopefully we can make this community as great as humanly possible. Again, we want to focus on quality posts there, so news, guides, mods, anything to do with different hardware for it. We want to see that. We want to focus on quality information. So, if you want to join, which we highly encourage you to do so, go ahead to the link in the description. Or again, go to Reddit, search r/Steam Deck HQ. I highly doubt there's going to be anyone else that pops up. But again, thank you guys all for watching. We really do appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to hit that notification bell to be notified as soon as we go live, go ahead and hit it. Otherwise, if you're watching or listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon Music, go ahead and follow us so you can figure out when our next episode is going live. And if you haven't followed us anywhere else, you could go to Twitter, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads. Those are our 4 main social media where we post all of our articles and little tidbits about it and try to interact with the community. You can find us there at Steam Deck HQ. If you want to get unedited versions of these podcasts, as well as some behind the scenes content, go ahead to our Patreon. It's a great way of supporting us, and we really appreciate it. It's only $3 if you want to get rid of ads on our website, and $6 if you want to get the unedited podcast. But $3 also gets you behind the scenes. So, no, I think it's worth it. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next week.